Hey you guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk all about humidity and plants. And I both wanted to just talk about humidity and plants in general, and then also my own humidity recommendations. So let's kind of demystify humidity. To start with, a lot of people think that plants need more humidity than they do. They can really adapt. There are some plants that will refuse to, and you will have a hard time growing them in a regular household environment. Not very many, especially not plants that you just can find at the grocery store or a greenhouse. Like those plants are going to be a-okay in your dry house. I can tell you that 100% that they'll be okay. In my house, when it's minus 40 out here, we have to turn the humidifier down to 10% just to make sure that we don't have problems with our attic, all of that, and the plants survive just fine. I do supplement. I'll show you my humidifiers in a minute. I do supplement, but not everywhere. Turning up the humidifier in your home, the one that's attached to your furnace, can be dangerous. If you own a house and you are cranking up your humidity, especially if you live in a more northern climate. I don't live anywhere down south. I can't say the same for down there. But for up here in the winters when it's cold, you are asking for all kinds of attic issues or rot, all of that. So I only supplement in small little areas with humidifiers, that kind of thing. But like I said, most plants can handle 30% humidity. They will be okay. So don't stress about humidity too much. Now, for your plants that prefer higher humidity, a common example would be calatheas. There's a few things that you can do. Number one, and the easiest one, is grouping plants together. So a good example is my old apartment. I had a small apartment and a lot of plants. And without adding any extra humidity to that apartment, it sat at the lowest around 45 to 50%, which for where I live is very high, unreasonably high. That is the equivalent of a jungle in the Canadian prairies. So that was pretty high. Now, the reason why it was that high is just because I had less than 1,000 square feet and 250 plants all close to the window. So that is a lot of pots with a lot of soil that is most of the time watered. It's just the plants themselves and the soil, everything in there was just raising the humidity. So that works really great. If you have your calatheas all in a little grouping, you can cluster those higher humidity plants together, maybe add some external humidity source like a humidifier or a fountain or something like that, and they will be just fine. Now, there are a lot of plants that do better with higher humidity. So I do add humidity. I can understand why you would want to. But before we dive into that, there are a few things you do not want to sacrifice in order to up your humidity. So we'll start with a popular example. Misting your plants. If you're walking around with a squirt bottle and misting your plants, I get it. There is something very mentally relaxing about doing that. I understand. It's really nice to do. When I first got plants, I liked to do it. I'm not going to shame you. Some people will shame you. I won't shame you. I get it. It's a good mental health thing. But water sitting on leaves can add to more issues than good. Misting your plants is not going to raise your humidity. Your overall humidity in your space is not going to be raised even if you empty a whole squirt bottle onto your plants. It won't raise the humidity. It'll bump it a little bit for a short period of time and then it's over. So while mentally calming for you, not always the best for your plants, can cause more harm than good. If you really, really love misting plants and it's something, like I said, that's mentally relaxing for you, do it while it's hot and sunny out, because then that water will evaporate, won't be sitting on the leaves for too long. That's your ticket. Then you can go and give them a little mist and be gentle with it. Next one to address would be pebble trays. So you can use things like pebble trays, but they don't work that great. And they're kind of a pain, and you see people do them wrong all the time, where then the base of the plant gets wet and it can cause more bad than good. Plus, they're hard to keep full of water. You can buy yourself a 4-liter, 3-liter, 4-liter humidifier and not even have to think about it. With pebble trays, the water evaporates so quickly that you are constantly having to think about replacing that water. So for what good it does, it's not enough to really be worth it, in my opinion. So my favorite ways to add humidity to a space are humidifiers, and I'll show you the two that I have here, and fountains. And fountain I use in my greenhouse, but you can totally use it in a living space as well. They also empty quite quickly because that water is evaporating. That's how you know it's working. So fountains are a really pretty way to go about increasing the humidity of a space. You can use small ones, you can use big ones, totally up to you. But let's get into humidifiers, which kind of have like their own attractive qualities. The mist in itself gives that very jungly vibe. They're super easy, super low maintenance to use. I definitely like humidifiers. So let's dive into the ones that I've got. There are two main types of humidifiers: top fill humidifiers and bottom fill humidifiers. And top fill, I'll show you an example. This guy here, this is my Elec Homes humidifier. It is a top fill. And what that means is you just lift this lid and you pour the water straight into here. Now this, in theory, seems like a great idea. And I was so excited to get a top fill because in my mind, I'm like, way easier. I just bring water and dump it in. True. However, you have to wash these things in order for you to be safe. Like, you don't want your lungs dealing with old gunky humidifier water air. And I have to say, the top fill, while it makes you want to run it more and fill it more because it's so easy, it sure doesn't inspire you to clean it. I'm being honest. I know I've got one. This is hard to inspire me to clean because all I want to do is, like, with my night water, like, take a sip of my water and then just like dump the rest of it in here. It's convenient, but at what cost? Other than that, I have to say this humidifier is fantastic. It's definitely like one of the all the bells and whistles one. Plus it also can operate as a hot water humidifier, which, while I wouldn't use that for plants, you can then also use this humidifier like in your room, like if you're sick or something like that, or you get like nosebleeds in the winter, like I do. You could use it for that as well. But definitely a good humidifier to utilize. I totally recommend it. And then the other type of humidifier in a color that is more suitable for me, I really like blacks, dark colors, is this Kaival humidifier. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with this. It runs for forever. It puts out, like if you want it to, it puts out a lot of water. It's got a nice little handle for carrying it. And when I said bottom fill, what I mean is you carry this part of the water tank over to your sink, open it up on the bottom and fill it that way, then put it back on. So while top fills are kind of like talked about like they're so convenient, I have to say, you either have to have a big old jug to fill this thing up and then remember to clean it, or just take this over to the sink. Like, both are easy. I like both. I have no preference. Truthfully, I have no preference. But this Kaival humidifier has been great for me. It's got like a little filtration system in it. It runs for a really long time, especially if you set it on a pretty low level. So that is where I use this one, is in the grow tent downstairs with all of the vegetables and propagations. And it runs awesome. So this is a fantastic humidifier if you're looking for something that's pretty sleek. I like dark colors again, personally. Still really great, runs forever. Totally recommend it. There will be a link in my description box to my Amazon recommendations. You can click that link to check those out for Canada and the United States. And then additionally, I like to use those fountains. And I'll put some photos up here of some of the fountains that I use. Again, same thing. They just run, look pretty, but really help increase the humidity. So if you were to be using it in your living space, you definitely want to be putting plants close to it to really like reap the rewards of it. And then essentially how it's acting is just like a low humidity distributing humidifier, if that makes sense. And I love to use it in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet because it's pretty, so it looks nice. It doesn't like fog up the windows. I really, really like utilizing fountains in my IKEA greenhouse cabinets. So hopefully that helped calm some of your fears about humidity in your plants. If you have any plants that you know need high humidity to be okay, totally get yourself a humidifier or group them all around a fountain, something like that. That should really help you out. You don't need something like an IKEA greenhouse cabinet to be growing all of these fantastic, cool, unique species. You can grow them right in your living room and just give them that little extra bit to be happy. And I can't remember if I said this earlier or not, but most importantly, do not sacrifice airflow for high humidity. If you are putting like a bag or a box or a glass cloche, whatever, over a plant, that can be an issue because you're having now high moisture sitting on the leaves, sitting on the stem, and just sitting. Like in nature, there's airflow moving. So in the greenhouses, I have fans going. In the grow tents, I have tons of fans going. In your living space, people are walking, windows are open, air is moving and circulating. Do not let your plants just sit in stagnant air, wet. You are asking for a dead or ill plant. And a couple of quick questions, because I had popped this up on Instagram. So a couple of questions I don't think that I've addressed that I'll rattle through quickly. Number one, jewel orchids. Can you grow them outside of an IKEA greenhouse? 100%. I have some growing in my kitchen, actually, just in like a little glass bowl. The one thing you do have to think about is making sure that your medium for your jewel orchid stays reasonably well hydrated. I personally like to use a sphagnum mix of sorts. I do have a jewel orchids care video where I go through what exactly that mix is, but I definitely find myself having to rehydrate it quite frequently when it's not inside of the greenhouse. And on all my jewel orchids, same thing, I'm never sacrificing airflow for high humidity. I'd way rather force them to live in low humidity with good airflow. So 100% grow your jewel orchids in your living room. Go for it. It'll work. And another one is, how do I keep my humidity up in my IKEA greenhouse? And weatherproofing is totally the way in. A lot of those greenhouse cabinets have quite a bit of space around their door hinges, so you're gonna wanna be putting some kind of weatherproofing in. Again, in my description box, I do have recommendations for what I personally have used. I use one on the door opening that's more like a flap that holds it closed. And then I use a different type of weatherproofing all around the perimeter. That's a little bit thicker and it just kind of keeps all of the air in. Again, fans. Fans are key in those greenhouses. So I think I covered most everything. I hope that this kind of gave you some things to think about. If you have any other questions or recommendations or how you like to keep up your humidity, totally leave all of that in the comments down below. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, you guys.